Well, hello to all of you from around the world. I want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Soulivity Today. We're broadcasting live from our studio right here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and whether you're at home, driving, or even at work, we are always glad you're here with us. Now, we have a very special show for you, and I'll be introducing my co-host in just a second. But first, let's start here. Early Tuesday morning, a cargo ship traveling through the Patapsco River lost power and collided with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland, which is just about an hour or so north of here in Washington, D.C. Now, rescuers immediately sprung into action where rescue efforts began to search for the dozen or so missing people who had been working or driving on the bridge that morning. Now, both Governor Wes Moore and the mayor of Baltimore, Brandon Scott, reacted to this tragedy swiftly, echoing feelings and thoughts of the community at large.
A short time ago, we spoke with Maryland Governor Wes Moore to ask about the families of the missing and the survivors. And what do we know about the victims' families? How are they doing?
I had the chance to spend time with the victims' families, and they're distraught and they're heartbroken. But I tell you, the hopefulness that they have. These are very prayerful families, and I had the chance to pray with them and pray for them. They define what it means to be Maryland tough and to be Baltimore strong.
2 people were miraculously rescued. What do we know about the survivors?
So there are 2 people that we know of. One who's actually in shock trauma right now, and so we have a remarkable shock trauma unit here in the city of Baltimore, and they're actively working on one individual and another individual who was actually the leader of that group, who watched it all take place, and I had a chance to spend time with him, and literally he tells a story where he was actually walking away from the bridge when the bridge began to collapse, and so he's watching what happened to him, and even as he said that was all God's grace.
That's incredible. So essentially, he barely escaped.
He barely escaped. I mean, this was an absolutely catastrophic event.
And Governor, I know so many people depend on this bridge to get to work. How quickly can this bridge be rebuilt?
This is going to be of a top priority for us to make sure that we can get this bridge built back up.
Well, this is a tragedy that you can never imagine, right? And I was awake when Chief Wallace called me, but never would you think that you would physically see the Key Bridge tumble down like that. It looked like something out of an action movie. And you just think about, most importantly, which is what we all should be thinking about right now, nothing but those families and people that are impacted, and those people who are risking their lives right now, from not just Baltimore City and Baltimore County, but all over the state, to try to save lives. That should be our focus, the preservation of life, because no one wants to see that happen, let alone someone in their family, someone that they know, be injured in an incident like this.
Now, many of you around the world know about this news, right? And maybe wondering why I'm reiterating information that has been widely reported on. Well, in the midst of this accident that has global effects, I mean, the national economy and the world's economy depends on the port of Baltimore, which is closed right now. And that port handles more cars and more farm equipment than any other port in the country. Right-wing politicians decided to make this important event about something that isn't anywhere near relevant to this moment or time. They made it about diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's right, DEI. You can't make this stuff up, folks. I personally believe that this was a dog whistle, and that the meaning, them using this terminology meant something else. And I'm recalling the times at which both political parties would come together to be united in times of a national crisis. Well, I guess those days are gone. Now, I won't go through the numerous nonsensical tweets and statements on television and radio, but I will give the stage to American TV and film producer Keith Boykin for his reaction to these people, which kind of echoes what I'm feeling today.
As soon as the cargo ship hit the bridge in Baltimore, conservatives couldn't wait to blame DEI. According to them, everything that's wrong with America is because of DEI, woke policies, and affirmative action. A train derailment.
After seeing another Norfolk Southern train derailed this weekend, I was reminded of the fact that the company wrote to shareholders stating that it is focused on DEI.
A plane accident.
CEO of Boeing to step down this year. Did you have that on your 2024 bingo card? Take a look. This is all in the face of DEI.
A bank collapse.
Because the reason that the risk assessment team was looking the other way the entire time at SVB was because they were too busy with the woke distraction.
A bridge falls down.
But of course, you've been talking a lot about the potential for wrongdoing or potential for foul play given the wide open border.
They even called the mayor of Baltimore the DEI mayor. Never mind that the train company, the aircraft manufacturer, and the bank are all run by white men.
Now, because of DEI, when you see a black surgeon, you get a question in your mind.
As if old white guys were lining up to see black doctors in the first place. The attack on DEI presupposes that anyone who is white and male got his job because of merit, and everyone else got it for some other reason. That's because they falsely equate diversity with inexperience and blackness with incompetence. So who was responsible for the thousands of plane crashes, train accidents, and bank failures in the 200 years before DEI even existed, when only white men held those jobs? The worst train accident in America was in 1918. The conductor was a white man. The worst plane crash in America was in 1979. The pilot was a white man. The worst shipping accident in America was in 1865. The captain was a white man. And the worst president in America was, well, you get the picture. In reality, diversity, equity, and inclusion and affirmative action have always been about recruiting, hiring, retaining, and promoting qualified black people, women, people of color, and other groups that have traditionally been locked out of opportunity. Stop politicizing tragedies to blame black and brown people. That's not sophisticated business reasoning, that's racism.
That's racism. That is racism, folks. It's also discrimination, plain and simple. Now, this isn't rocket science here. If we as a people want to move forward toward a bright future for all of us in this country, we must stop scapegoating communities of color, women, and LGBTQ people. When you do that, that isn't higher consciousness. When you do that, that isn't acceptance. That isn't honoring thy neighbor. So we're going to talk about this today. And I'm happy to welcome my co-host for today's show, the amazing Dr. Chanel DeGuzman, executive leadership coach, author, and Soulivity senior contributor. Hi, Chanel. As you can see, I'm a little hot this morning.
Just a little hot. Coming in a little hot, Brian. Good morning. Good morning.
When you saw the tragedy and then you saw the reactions, these political reactions, and I'm being very kind saying that, what were your reactions to that?
So, Brian, before I give my reactions, can we just take a minute to honor those who have lost their lives those who might still be
Absolutely.
missing, the family members,
Absolutely.
both here and abroad, who, are just probably with immense grief and
Yeah.
heartache. So I just want to
Right.
take time, and we want to give our thoughts and our prayers to everyone affected by this tragedy.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. I mean,
Let's be the change that we want to be.
yes, let's be the change. Absolutely. And that is where my heart is. So to have to deviate, talk about deviations, to have to deviate from the humanity of this tragedy and all focus and energy on prayers and goodwill and love, we now have to have a conversation about certain individuals making this about or politicizing this whole tragedy to
Absolutely.
scapegoat DEI. I mean,
Yeah.
DEI comes in waves. You hear about it and then it goes quiet and then it comes back up to surface. And now all of a sudden we want to bring and attack DEI in the midst of this, horrific tragedy. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's nonsensical and it's hard for somebody like me to, to really want to even engage in the conversation. But I know
Yeah.
it is our duty to increase awareness where there is, I'm going to say, as I said in our pre-introduction, ignorance to me.
Ignorance.
And it's nonsensical. And you don't want to entangle your energy, your love, your light with this. But unfortunately, we coexist in this world and we have these types of people in our world. So it's not like we can completely just ignore them. We do have to bring light and call this out because it just doesn't make sense. And I just say, where is the humanity in this across the aisle? That's what my question is.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. I will say this part. I think the people who these politicians are talking to are probably ignorant. But the politicians that are actually speaking the words, I say a lot of them, if I'm being kind, they know what they're doing. This is a presidential election year where people are running again for Congress and Senate, and they are trying to rile up some folks who are probably ignorant themselves, or maybe not ignorant to what that dog whistle is. I mean, using DEI in this way, in this moment, right? It's not like they're just having a regular political discussion about policy or something like that, and they want to equate some of the thoughts in the policy around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't have to agree with that, but I could understand where they were trying to go. But this was an accident, a collision, a tragedy where not only are the families, first and foremost, the families of the missing are hurting, right? But this is also something that's affecting our global economy as well. And it's like, well, shouldn't the focus be on finding out where the missing are, right? Giving some closure to those families around their missing loved ones, may they be dead or alive, hopefully alive. Clearing the port so that naval traffic can get in and out to restore, what's being lost, because it's something like, I think Secretary Buttigieg said yesterday that this is happening in a way where the economy is being affected by $100 million a day. A day. So in 10 days, that's $1 billion, y'all. Right? And we're already at day 4, I think, So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah. So we'll be at day 4 tomorrow.
Hmm.
So there's more. I mean, not to say there's more important things to talk about today, but I couldn't be silent because those folks picked this moment specifically to bring this forth, which means that this was intentional, right? This was an intentional act by folks,
It almost
right?
feels, Brian, like this ploy, if you will, was already waiting in the wings
Hmm.
for an incident to attach itself to.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
shame on you, shame on, these promoters of this argument that they would use such a human tragedy for this. And I think Mayor Scott had also said, and maybe even the governor, just said the focus needs to be on the people, the families. I mean, some of those workers were from Mexico, and
Yeah.
how um, their efforts fund, or they send money back home. That's just how the culture is. And
Right.
so there were prayers and requests being made. Don't forget about their families, because those are the primary breadwinners for those families who are now gone. And
Right.
so just coming together as a community, especially in the Baltimore area, is what they were saying, for us to not forget these families and figure out how can we support those particular families. So again, to take the focus off of the most important thing, and like you said, the economic impact that this is all going to,
Hmm.
I mean, this is going to be
Hmm.
a ripple effect throughout that community, throughout, different parts of the United States, and like you said, globally. And
Right.
so what are we doing to shore that up? Um, and in addition, I understand that there were tragedies, in the construction in the bridge area the year before. So, just looking at the engineering, the structural integrity of bridges, how are they being maintained and reinforced? And,
Right.
what about those questions
Right. Right.
for the
And, s-
safety?
and so those are all the things that you astutely point out that I think we should be keeping our eye on. And if it's about infrastructure as a whole, then that's something that you can politically kind of talk about. Hey, are we going about this the right way? But there was an infrastructure bill passed last year. They're implementing it throughout the last few years. Just to bring forth information that the Coast Guard brought forward too was in terms of this bridge, even if it had been reinforced and all this kind of stuff, we're
Mhm.
talking about a 1,000-foot fully loaded cargo ship that was running anywhere between 8 to 10 knots, which is about 12 to 15 knots per miles per hour, with
Mhm.
hundreds of tons of stuff on it.
Right.
The bridge was going to come down based
With that
upon
collision.
where it hit. It hit one of the main pylons and completely destroyed it. That bridge was going to come down, right?
Mhm.
Because of that. And so I just want
Mhm.
to make sure that people understand this. Also, we know now that the ship, it wasn't pilot error or anything like that. The ship lost power
Mhm.
3 times before it hit the pylon. It lost power the last time right before it hit, and they were trying to turn the ship, and it just failed at that point.
Right.
So this was an accident, and there's no one, quote unquote, to blame. The ship had been inspected. I mean, they're going through the process of investigation. They said this investigation is probably going to take a couple of years to go
Mhm.
through.
Mhm.
But we're going to have answers, and the bridge will be rebuilt. The Biden administration has, uh, already started moving funds for the recovery, to get the port cleared, and to start the initial assessments around rebuilding.
Mm.
From what Secretary Buttigieg said yesterday, during his press conference, the Francis Scott Key Bridge took about 5 years to build in, I think, the 60s or 70s. My guess is it won't take as long because there's new technology around that. So it could make 2 or 3 years, we could have that bridge rebuilt. And so there's going to be a lot of pain from people in that community, to your point earlier, Chanel, where they've got to drive around the port of Baltimore to go either south or north, where they were able just to, on that side of the world, they were able just to go across the bridge. Also, businesses are going to be suffering because they also have to think about rerouting traffic and that kind of thing. And so just want to make sure that we use today as a teaching moment around this, bring some awareness in, to uplift the conversation and block out those folks that are talking nonsense, because this is what this is. This is nonsense. And as I told you, Chanel, my daddy told me a long time ago, don't try to make sense out of nonsense.
That's right.
Don't try to do that.
Right.
Don't try to do that. So listen, we're going to take a break. We're going to let all this kind of settle in. So you might want to go get another cup of coffee or tea, or if you're watching us later on KMET or here on Soulivity TV, maybe a glass of wine or something like that, because we got more coming up. So we're going to take this break and we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Do you see me kneeling on this dual roller called Parasetter? It's actually comfortable because of this channel and the softness of the special foam. It feels like my kneecaps are being massaged. When I lie down, my spine is housed in this channel, while the convex rollers massage my muscles. They let go and lengthen. There's a traction effect from my head on the headrest and my mid-back from the rib wrap, which hugs me. When I start the breathing sequence, I feel calm because my cortisol levels are dropping. Lower cortisol means bye-bye constant hunger. Parasetter is 40 inches long and much more comfortable than old-style rollers, but it weighs only 10 ounces. Parasetter, just like Pilates was, is no longer an insider secret. Do yourself a favor. Reset your parasympathetic nervous system. Defeat stress. Lying, sitting, kneeling, or standing. This unique patented roller helps everyone.
Join us every weekday at 8 a.m. for Soulivity Today.
Whether you're just starting your day or on the road,
Soulivity Today will make your days better.
We will empower you with authentic conversation about the latest news and trending topics. Plus, you won't want to miss our interviews with industry experts.
So sit back, relax, and get ready for a whole lot of fun.
Soulivity Today, weekdays at 8 a.m. only on KMET 1490 AM radio and ABC News affiliate. Hey, we're back with more here on Soulivity Today, where we are discussing the political reactions to the Baltimore Bridge collapse in Baltimore, Maryland. And back with me is Dr. Chanel DeGuzman, executive leadership coach, author, and Soulivity contributor. Hey girl. When I'm thinking about all this nonsense, I'm thinking about the fact that in a lot of minority communities, they face this stuff day in and day out, both personally and professionally. And one of the terms that comes to mind, there's many, but one of the terms that comes to mind is microaggressions. And to those that don't know what this term means, again, we're using this as a teaching moment. Microaggressions are actions that negatively target a marginalized group or individual. And it's a form of discrimination that can be both intentional or accidental. So it does, when people say, oh, oops, or I didn't really mean it, so it's not, no, it doesn't work that way. And so want to talk about this a little bit to kind of put this into context here so people understand what people of color, women, LGBTQ folks, and other minorities, our Native American brothers and sisters, when this stuff kind of happens and people speak nonsense out their mouth about them, what that is and what that feels like. And so, Chanel, I asked you this offline before we started the show, because we were both kind of getting a little hot too before the show came on. You've experienced this in your world, probably both personal and professional. Can you remember an incident when this happened to you?
Yeah, Brian, in the workplace is where I mostly have experienced microaggressions, and they are subtle jabs, subtle oversights on, essentially, to me, a subtle attack of your gender, your race, your sexual orientation. And for me, it's more of a gender issue. So being perceived as a Black woman, with authority, you are sometimes undermined, and you might be essentially attacked. I remember a white male who actually, surprisingly, but not surprisingly, was LGBTQ, but yet he would come after me because of the authority. So we were both directors in the same office. And one time our boss was out of the office, and instead of sharing the authority, he basically tried to undermine my authority. And we ended up getting into this heated argument, which everybody heard, even though our door was closed. And when the boss came back, it really came down to kind of blaming me for, not being cooperative or not being a team player, even though this particular individual basically kind of came at me and more or less verbally attacked me. In the end, and that sometimes happens when, especially you've got quote unquote two, I'll say minorities,
in the same space.
In the same space. One person may be perceived as, having more authority. Now, he looked white male. And so when HR got involved, they were leaning very heavily in terms of his side of the story and really discounting mine, as almost blaming me because he was, gay, let's say. And so they were trying to defend him and not even understanding that there were microaggressions happening all along in terms of the attack on my authority as a Black woman, and not fully recognizing I earned my directorship. I have just as much authority as this person. And so it ended up being a very tenuous situation. In the end, we did have to come together and figure out the root cause of everything. And eventually we did. But the buy-in was that I was at fault and I should have been more understanding because he was of a marginalized group. And can you see how that subtle microaggression just got turned on its head?
Right.
And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
And here again, we're talking about you're in a situation professionally where here's a microaggression against you. It turns into this thing with HR, and then HR's resolution is another microaggression against you.
Yes. Yeah.
Because Black women and women of color have had to fight double and triple times everybody else.
Absolutely.
Because they're always been at the low end of the totem pole, at the end of the stick. This has been throughout history. And just to let people know, we'll put some links in a little bit later, but this is not new, folks. So if you're thinking all this stuff is new and all this is just recently been happening, I will point out one great, huge microaggression that happened just recently during COVID. Look at our Asian American brothers and sisters that got brutalized and violently attacked because of COVID, right? They had nothing to do with that, right? Yet they were aggressively and violently attacked. I mean, the amount of Asian hate just rose tremendously during that time.
And the violence too.
And the violence. I mean, how many? I mean, elderly Asians were attacked on the street just for no reason at all. So this is not something that is like, oh well, this is just happening, this is all in our minds and all this. This is documented throughout history. I mean, Keith Boykin was talking about this, where does it really make sense that this accident was caused by diversity, equity, and inclusion when the overwhelming majority of accidents and other things that have happened in our country and in our world were by when white men were in charge? Not demonizing them at all. I'm just talking facts right now. Right? So does it really make sense? Does it really make sense that somebody would bring up DEI and this was because of DEI or because we have open borders or, that kind of thing? Does it really make sense when you look at it factually? So just want to make sure that we're talking apples to apples here and really bringing forth, factual information that we can use to empower ourselves and then unify so that everybody can have their best life, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's why we're talking about this stuff today.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know,
go
Brian.
ahead.
It
Go ahead,
seems
Chanel.
like people, just try to explain away, a tragedy with this politicizing the issue versus figuring out again, or just acceptance. Like you said, this was not necessarily a human error that we can point to, until the investigation comes out. This was just an error that happened or an accident.
Right.
And so to, attach meaning and to rationalize the accident and attach it to something that benefits and gets the crowd all riled up again is the distraction. It's not DEI. It's the fact that you're getting people riled up in a the fact that we're getting ready to, a voting year,
right,
to perhaps, sway the vote because you might feel like this is getting away from you. So you're just reaching for straws at this point.
Right.
And I just pray that the common person, and maybe through continual awareness and dialogue and just us bringing this to the surface, that people will see it for what it is. I mean, in actuality, DEI, benefits more companies than not. The innovation that comes out of diverse perspectives and innovation that results from coming and solving problems with diverse ways of thinking and knowing benefits companies' bottom line and their revenue.
Absolutely.
And so to even remotely attach this to this tragedy shows again that some people are ill-informed and who have agendas that are not for our highest good, are not for the unification of this country.
Absolutely. Brilliantly stated. Brilliantly stated. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Listen, we're going to take another break. I'm glad that you mentioned people taking action, because in the next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to go into how all of us can have these discussions when they happen, and move forward with relating to each other at a higher level, and a more peaceful level, for the benefit of all. So everyone, we're going to take this break and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Hi there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoy the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. Hey, we are back with more here on Soulivity today, where we are discussing the political reactions to the Baltimore bridge collapse. Earlier this week, back with us is Dr. DeGuzman, author and executive leadership coach. Chanel, we were just talking in the last segment about how people just didn't sit around when this happened. People took action. They didn't sit idle. They fought back against all this nonsense, especially on social media with some of their responses. One on Twitter specifically, a lot of people in the minority communities, specifically communities of color, Black community, they reclaimed the term DEI and made it trend as the DEIs, like we are all the DEIs. And I loved it. Like, no, you're not gonna, we're just not gonna let this stand and let you use this term in a derogatory way toward us. We're gonna claim this thing and move it back into, like you said earlier, Chanel, that DEI is about expanding the pool of qualified talent to that, where it includes marginalized communities that have a lot to offer, especially around things like problem solving. I keep thinking about Hidden Figures, for instance, which is, this fantastic movie around DEI, basically, where they took advantage of this talent that was solving problems for NASA. Yes. Think about that. Just think about that. These beautiful women of color who changed the world, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Chanel.
No, I was going to say, just even that example, like the inclusion part of DEI, those women were now included in that space. They added the diversity in terms of thought diversity, a different way to, do those calculations and look at the problem and solve it in real time in some instances, right in front of those white men who were sitting there scratching their heads. That is what inclusion is all about. And that is what diversity is all about. is getting more perspectives in the room so that you can look at problems differently, look at approaches to solving the problems through different lens and different perspectives, and you come out with a higher result, a higher solution than if you have the homogeneous collection that thinks the same way, that has the same background, that comes to problems with the same types of experiences. This is why those companies that realize that DEI is of value, profit more than those who don't.
Absolutely.
And it's just amazing the lack of opportunity sometimes, and that is left on the table because people have these ill-informed notions about DEI. And I'm so glad that we are coming out and reclaiming the positive nature of DEI, because it is of benefit. I mean, just think about our world. I mean, we can't exist without each other, honestly, if you really think about it.
Absolutely. I look at things like the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, right, would not have existed without people like the late great, and I'm losing Thurgood Marshall, right, who argued for the abolishment of separate but equal, which was the cornerstone of the nation before that, right? That, oh, well, it's okay, we can have these separate things and but we're still equal. It's like, no, that doesn't exist. Well, he brought forth a different idea in law that stuck and created a constitutional amendment that benefited everyone, right? And so here's again diversity at action, right? In action. And so, glad that people are speaking out about this, glad people are taking this back, not letting it sit. There was one response on Twitter from one of my followers that I won't mention her name just to, but she said, I love how we take something that was meant to be offensive, calling minority folks DEIs, and turn it into a joke. It dismantles the weapon and turns it into something that we can enjoy and makes fools out of those who try to harm us with it. She said, our humor is medicinal. And I was like, absolutely, absolutely. This is nonsense. We're going to treat it as nonsense. And we're going to take back and put forth what this really means for all of us, right? That this is power. We are power.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're going to take just one more break, Chanel, but when we come back, as you know, always want to leave people with empowering. So, in terms of this moment of a learning and lesson of teaching, want to make sure we bring this forward too. So everybody, we're going to take this quick break and we'll be back with more of Soulivity Today in just a moment.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose, Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Hey, we're back with more on Soulivity today, where we are talking about the political reactions to the Baltimore Bridge collapse, which included some microaggressions, as we're calling it. You can call it some other things too, but you know, this is a children-friendly show, so we're not going to say that kind of stuff today. Chanel, I like the fact that throughout the show we've been kind of like interjecting some more empowerment and inspiring kinds of things to raise the conversation up, to help people understand that how this was handled was not cool, right? In terms of how people came out and just made this political kind of stuff. And probably also inform people, okay, is this the kind of person you want to be representing you in your local district? I mean, because this is also what this is about, right? Just want to end today's conversation with some thoughts about, you know, how people can be mindful of their words and their thoughts when they're speaking to people in general, but specifically marginalized communities, because this has been going on for a long time. And if, you know, we want to help people be the change that they can see. And so I found some information from Kevin Nadal, who's a professor of psychology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, who spent years researching and writing books on the effects of microaggressions, and says that, you know, as big structural issues play out, it's also important to confront the small stuff too. So these small microaggressions, and he has 3 ways to do it. And I'll kind of go through these real quickly, and then I'll get some reaction from you while we still have time. 1, do your own work. Do your own work, even, you know, before you even get to a microaggression, right? Read blogs and personal essays. Understand the lived experience of historically marginalized groups. Watch documentaries and try to think outside of your own perspective. It's really, really good. Set realistic expectations of what you want from these conversations. Also think about, is this actually helping? Such a really important aspect, right? Is this a conversation that I view as being helpful in any way, shape, or form? It's important to acknowledge that no one is going to learn everything in one conversation overnight, right? And 3, always be aware of yourself and your mental health when having these conversations. So vitally important. In a world where we all fought for social justice all the time, we would be getting into productive arguments and fights and having protests every day and changing laws, but we don't and we can't, because we are also human and we need to rest.
Yes.
So it is okay for you to walk away when you can walk away.
That is absolutely right. Those are great points, Ryan. I'm so glad that you raised those in terms of leaving the audience with some tangible steps that they can take. And I would add to that, love thy neighbor. I mean, simple, you know, it sums it all up with these words: love thy neighbor as thyself. Remember to express the humanity in this situation. So when you're in dialogue and you've got somebody spewing off this other, you know, nonsense, remember what you stand for and speak power to truth. And, you know, I wouldn't necessarily engage with people that are speaking this nonsense, you know, face to face or head on. I mean, there's a certain point that you do need to walk away, but recognizing what you stand for and your values and reinforce that. And then try in some way, whether it's a prayer, a thought, send your energy, send your, you know, good vibrations in that
Yeah.
community's way, and make a donation, do something positive. And then remember something, Brian, you said, remember to hold these people who are spewing this negativity, this scapegoating. Remember to hold those people accountable when it comes
Yeah.
time to vote, when it comes time to lend support. Don't let people off so easily.
Right.
Hold them accountable, but
Right.
it does come back to you and what you stand for and your values. So, stand up for the right thing and show your humanity, your love. That is the focus of this particular tragedy.
Mm, mm. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Oh man, I wish we could keep talking about this because this is so important. Maybe we'll talk about this again sometime. But right now, I'm thinking that if you need some support through stuff like this, especially women who are professionals, go check out Chanel. She has got some complimentary coaching sessions that she's got available. You can reach her at 313-410-9909. Chanel, talk a little bit about these, maybe 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, Brian, we talked about microaggressions. You can be stymied in your career because you're reacting to these microaggressions in a less productive way that ends up getting you blamed, like unfortunately I experienced. But through that empowerment coaching, you can take that power back and chart your own course. So definitely reach out to me, especially if you're facing any of these types of situations. If it doesn't feel right, you need to say something and get some support. So happy to chat with you about your experiences.
Excellent, excellent. Again, that number is area code 313-410-9909. These are complimentary coaching sessions, so you can begin to start your next chapter of your life today. Chanel, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you,
man,
and thank you for raising this, Brian.
Hey, you know how I roll. You know how I roll on this stuff. Listen, want to thank all of you for being here. I just want to remind you that you can join us every weekday right here on Soulivity TV, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern for our live broadcast. We're now rebroadcasting the show at 6 p.m. too, so you can join us later on in the day, or you can watch us and listen to us at KMET 1490 AM radio at 8 a.m. Pacific time for all of you out on the West Coast. Listen, gotta go, but keep on working that passion and purpose because you are going to create your best life today. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.